Okay, so my next project, if you can call it that, it's much smaller, is Revolution, Dutch Revolt, 1568 to 1648, by Francis Tresham, the one who wasn't arrested for being part of the gunpowder plot. Tresham is one of my, well, one of the people who most impresses me in the board gaming industry, in terms of just the incredible innovations that he put forth in two different games, 1829, the first of the 18XX series, and Civilization. This game, like the 18XX series, has absolutely no luck in it. And it uses a combat system that's very similar to the one that's used in Civilization, which is very minimalist. You pick pieces, you match pieces up. The person with the weakest number of pieces in an area loses a piece. Then the person with the next weakest number loses a piece until you get to a population limit in the area. So this uses that mechanic inside the regions, and it uses it also inside the cities. Right now, what we've got is the starting position. I just want to go over the major factions and kind of what their position is at the beginning of the game. So let's start off first with the Catholics, who are mainly positioned along the southern area of the board, although they do have some holding up towards the center. Their goal, obviously, is to try to maintain Catholicism within the Netherlands. This is, in one sense, I'm doing this game as a celebration of my upcoming trip to Belgium and maybe the Netherlands and who knows where else. Okay, then we have the Habsburgs, who are sort of a natural ally to the Catholics, largely in terms of how they affect the different alignments of things. They're both going in the same direction. The Catholics are a little stronger, anti-Reformation Catholicism, whereas the Habsburgs really just want to maintain the Catholic Church and the Empire as the pillars and the status quo as it stands. And they are the red pieces. They're the only ones who start the game with armies, and this is the only choice in setup, is they have to put two armies down, and they can put it in those two places or in this one, and that's it. Everything else is set up exactly as it must be. The third faction are the nobles, who are essentially opportunists here. They want to maintain the noble power. They do not want the current status quo, particularly with the Habsburgs and the church controlling things. But they may also not want to go as extreme as the Reformation side would go. And they are green, and they have some holdings outside, some support from the Empire itself, which is kind of being distinguished from the Habsburgs, and also support from France. The third group is the burghers, who are blue, and they are essentially in favor of trade. Right now they have very little power, although they have decent presence in the cities. They also have support from the London merchants, and somewhere or another, yeah, the Huguenots are in support of them. And the final and fourth of the powers, and at the start probably the weakest, are the actual reformers. These are your strict Reformation side. They want to overthrow the empire, the Catholic stranglehold. They're sort of a natural ally to the burghers, but they want to go even stronger, and they're more interested in the ideological side of things. Now, everybody's playing in the same kind of field here, and they have support, of course, from the Calvinists. Everybody's playing in the same sort of field, and they're competing, and there's no real reason why supposed allies, so for example the burghers could well end up in a position where they're opposed to the Reformation as a whole. there's no real reason why these have to fall out exactly the way they do, but there are some game mechanics in play that enforce the rivalries that actually existed. So, for example, if pieces are in play over on the city chart, which I haven't set up yet, in terms of alignments of the various cities, well, Catholic influence is directly opposed to Reformer influence. And the alliances go in the same order that I just went through. The Catholics, the Habsburgs, the nobles, the burghers, and finally the Reformers on a spectrum. And they have different, if they can get the a particular city swayed into their side, there are different effects the further over it ends up. Likewise, the bishops swing between strong Catholicism, moderate Catholicism, moderate Reform, and then strong Reform. The different off-map boxes, some of them are available to some players, some are not. The overall objective of the game is to collect victory points. Each of the different powers in the game, everybody collects victory points for a shared set of activities. Ownership of cities, provinces, basic political power. But beyond that, each of the different sides has its own specific victory conditions which they want to aim to, which might be in conflict with each other, but aren't directly in opposition. So, for example, the Catholics want to maintain the bishops, whereas the Reformers want to get university towns. I believe the Habsburgs want to maintain military presence on the board. The nobles want to maintain popular support. And the burghers want to maintain the trade cities, which are these, there's a few of them that are labeled in white. We'll give you an update as we go along, but I wanted to show you the initial setup of the board. The components are beautiful in this game. There's a feeling that the entire game is calculable, but because there's no luck in it. But the truth of the matter is the decisions are so complex that it's, and of course there's the interaction of different players and the diplomacy, so it's very, very difficult to calculate what's going to happen, even towards the very end of the game, which I think is very beautiful. On the other hand, I don't think that this will ever catch on in the way that Civilization did in its day and that the 18XX series still does today. All right, we'll be back later.